Okay, so I bought some injectors from eBay, and obviously second-hand ones. They arrived not long ago, very well packaged, thanks to the chap I bought these off eBay. He's actually individually wrapped them, not only in tissue paper to protect them from sort of any sort of squashing damage or damage to each other as they turned up, he also put them in a bag in case there was any fuel left in them. So that was really good of him. 4E FTE injectors, so they're from the Glanza. Let me just pop them up and have a quick look. I've already been in here once basically, but we'll have a quick look at them. Although I say all of them have got a bit of surface rust on them, they're not particularly heavy or too bad. They're going to be sent out to be cleaned, balanced, and for all I know they may even be seized stuck, to be honest with you. I don't know when these were last used, so we'll have to take that as it comes, I guess. But like I say, they all came with their rubber spacers at the bottom. They all had the original O-rings on them as well at the top, and another spacer here which obviously sets it off the correct depth to get into the fuel rail, and the top feed injector. There appears to be some dirt inside the plug, nothing too serious, and the main thing is the two actual prong connectors, they're not corroded in any way, so it would appear that they've been sort of well looked after before they were stored. Now I will read the number off of them, which is 23250-11060, and they all add up. They're all the same numbers, and they are the ones that are listed for the Toyota Glanza, which is obviously the turbo version, the 4E FTE, rather than the 4E FE that I have in my Starlet. So what I'll do is I'll put the part number listed in the description below, so that way you can use that to look it up. When I did Google it, it comes up with the correct part number for the vehicle, so that's great. So yeah, there doesn't appear to be any rust or grime or problems in the basket at the top either. There's obviously a screen filter in there, and that obviously helps any shrapnel to stop it going in there. And if I've had a quick look up inside the injector port as well, and it doesn't look to be too corroded in there either. So the outside's got a bit of funk on it, but I'll be getting rid of that today. So that's what today's video is going to be about. I'm going to do a bit of a time lapse on it because I'm sure you don't need to see me doing it in real time. Well, started off by taping up the injector with some masking tape. Should have worn my gloves really, because we all know how lethal paper cuts can be, but we're off. So started off by sanding it with some wet and dry paper. This time I'm using it dry, obviously. Don't know where the I went there. Oh yeah, no, I'm back with the file now, so we're going to do a bit of filing on it. We'll come to that in a bit. And now it's time to wrap some memory paper around the file and carry on with that. Okay, so that's the first one cleaned up. You can see quite a lot of the surface rust has come off. I mean, there are some pits on it here. I don't think that's really going to come out. I don't really fancy putting any extra chemicals or anything on this. It's a heck of a lot better than it was. And like I say, as you saw at the beginning, I taped these up simply to stop any of the sanded off debris basically going into the injector, which is the last thing you want really. So there we are. I ended up getting a very fine sort of small square file out as well, and obviously you don't want to rub with any real pressure on it because that will actually take off material, and you don't want to remove material from the outer casing. All I was using it for was to get in here where there's the edge between the plastic and the metal itself. Because this has got a nice hard edge on it, you can put it quite close to the actual plastic itself without touching it, and you get a nice easy definition as to where you're actually going to remove some of the rust for, and just simply lay it on it with very light finger pressure and just sort of roll the injector around. And as you're doing that, it just simply takes off the top layer of rust without removing any of the metal underneath. So that one's come out lovely. I'm going to give it a quick clean up with brake cleaner. You can use sort of switch cleaner for the or electrical contact cleaner to get inside there, because there is some junk in there, so I'm going to try and keep that a bit clear. But at the end of the day, it's an injector and it has petrol flowing through it. The outside of it is steel, so yeah, used in that environment, the material should be certainly able to withstand sort of petrochemical solvents. So that's cleaned up as much as it's going to get. I can't get it out of the deep pitting, but it's not severe anyway. So I'm going to clean that one up, do the other three, and then give them a quick whack with paint. But yeah, I don't know if I'll bother filming time lapse of the next 3. You've seen me do one of them, so there we are. That's one injector ready to be cleaned up and painted, and then once that's ready for that, I'll then send it out to be cleaned itself. So there they are, all 4 of them cleaned up. They've come up pretty well actually. I'm really impressed with it. Nice and shiny. Like I say, how long that'll last depends on obviously whether I paint them or not. I mean, they weren't painted from the factory, so I don't really feel the need to, but just to stop them going rusty again, I might coat them with something. I'll do that in a different video. But the main things I used to do this, like I say, small square edge file. This was just to get into the grooves. You can basically pick out the surface rust with that. I mean, don't go nuts with it. I mean, you don't want to be removing material. I mean, it's a file, it will obviously remove material, good and bad. So all I did was very gently sort of rub it through just to take off the worst of the crusty rust. Then finished it up with just wrap round any circular part of it, twist the two together. That removes the majority of the surface rust. Like I say, it's very hard to get into there with anything else. So just fold yourself up a piece. And once it fits in the slot, you can then just use that to get rid of it. It's all looking pretty neat and tidy now, quite happy with that. The sort of nozzle end of these seals, they're pretty sort of cracked and crazed. I don't know if it's going to sort of come out in the photos or the video, but yeah, they're all cracked and damaged. But when these get refurbished and flow matched, or flow tested at least, they'll replace those. Same with the O-rings at the top. Obviously, it's very important that that seals correctly, because otherwise you get fuel weeing out of the rail all over a hot engine, which is the last thing you want. And these are some spacer pieces as well to stand that rail off. These aren't too bad, but if I send it to the injector remanufacturers without these on, I'll get new ones anyway as part of the deal. Although I have seen these on eBay for quite reasonable prices. So far so good. They've cleaned up quite nicely. I won't know until I've had them actually refurbished, flow tested, ultrasonically cleaned and all that sort of stuff. There are quite a few companies out there doing it, and I think it costs about sort of £15 or £12.50, I think it was, per injector. So I think for the sake of 50 quid, rather than just chuck them in and hope they work, at least I'll know that they've been cleaned and their flow rates are good, or if one of them's a duffer or whatever, I'll be able to buy some more. But I'm going with them being good, which is why I spent the time cleaning them, and we will see what happens with those. I'm just going to give them a quick degrease just to get rid of all the crap, wrap them back up again and put them away until later. Okay then, so as I showed earlier on, the indicator is obviously quite loose. At the moment it's being held in, there's a plastic piece that wraps over across onto the front of the slam panel. It's just held in with a self-tapping screw. I want to take it out. Obviously there's some sort of mark on here, so someone may have biffed it into something, judging by the scuffs that are on the bumper as well. That's not exactly going to be a bit of a stretch for whoever owned this beforehand, so I'll just take this out and see what we've got. Don't break it. There we are, easy way of doing it. So taking the light out, as you can see, on the back of the light there's supposed to be a square plastic tab sticking out here, and mine's clearly been snapped off. I was hoping to find it somewhere rattling around inside there, but I don't think we're going to be that lucky, so it looks like we might need a new one of these. They're not too expensive. You can pick up new ones for about 25 quid, and you can actually replace the lenses off them as well, so you might find a new back and just use the original lens, but most people sell them as a pair, so we'll have to see how that goes basically. But yeah, you can see where it's been loose and rattling around. It's clearly been scuffing itself up against stuff and doing things it shouldn't be doing really. So yeah, that's not great, is it? Anyways, that's how you take the light cluster out. This is the socket that it fits into essentially. All it is you push it in, the little square tab that's missing on mine goes into the back of that, and then on the top here the plastic piece wraps over and you simply screw it into this little plastic boss that's been pushed into the panel. Well, believe it or not, my wildest dreams have come true. It turns out the piece that is attached to that is currently lying in the bottom of the bumper, so I've made myself this retrieval device, which is, as you can probably tell, a big long screwdriver with some masking tape on the end of it, so hopefully I'll be able to stick it to it and bring it back out. But Should be fun, whatever happens. Same quality torch as we used earlier. It's as easy as that. It's a good trick for you if you do drop any nuts or bolts or anything stupid down a long hole and you don't fancy taking the bumper off. Get yourself a big long screwdriver and put some tape on the end of it apparently. So I don't know if we'll be able to glue this back on. Might be able to drill it and put a screw through the back of it, a very small one, self-tapper at that. Or I might even just end up adding something on the back of the light cluster. But if I can fix it and save myself the 15 to 20 odd quid it's going to cost me to buy a second-hand one for the sake of sort of repairing this one, I'm going to go for it. So there we go. One plastic peg retrieved, and we'll see if we can do anything to fix it. Okay, so we can see at the bottom that's the place where it's snapped off, and that's the size of the peg as well. It's not particularly big. The biggest issue with it is it's quite tapered, so the place where that attaches to the original part, by the time you've put a screw in that, there isn't a huge amount of length or diameter for it to be. It's not the largest part in the world. By the time you've drilled a hole in it, I'm not too sure if it's going to actually attach, but I think initially I'll drill a hole through this, the smallest one I can, and drill into the back of that and just see what we end up with. At the end of the day, this is already going to get replaced, so you know it could be classed as broken and obsolete as it is. So if I make it worse or break it, it really doesn't make any difference. So I'll try and save it, see if I can save myself a few quid. Because the more money I save here, the more money I'll have to actually spend on fun stuff like modifications. I mean, fixing stuff's one thing, but we'll give that a whirl and see what we end up with. Okay, so we're out with the cordless Vegeta pistol drill. Time to put some holes in things. Yep, that should line up. Now I've decided to drill the tab that broke off whilst holding it in my fingers. Not the smartest move. So we're back with some quite manky old Araldite. Test fitting, screws in, glues on, a bit more glue, maybe some more glue there, definitely a bit over there. Yep, all good. Okay, so I've managed to fix it. Quite happy with it really. I used the smallest screw I've ever seen, which was I think sort of 10mm by about 1.5mm, this tiny little brass countersunk screw. Managed to drill a hole in the flat section at the front of the actual body of the indicator, and then a hole up the actual peg that was snapped off, which I managed to find in the car. Put some Araldite on it, or epoxy repair glue as it's also known. It's supposed to dry in 5 minutes, but it's quite old stuff, so it's going to take a while for it to go off, and the last thing I want to do is stick it back on the car and permanently glue it to the car. So I'm going to let that dry overnight, but I'm very happy that I managed to find it and fix it, to be honest with you. That saved me 20 quid there. So yeah, pretty easy repair all in all, but you know, sometimes all is not lost. There's no need to chuck stuff away when you can make the most of it. So there we go. I'll let that one dry overnight and then put it back on in the morning.